What's up, everyone? Welcome into the All 22 NFL show. You got Chris and Ray. Today, we are going to be reviewing tight ends. But first, just remember, you could go to the App Store today to download the All 22 app. Go to all-22.com to sign up. We are live, people. You can start building your leagues out, right? The draft is coming up soon. Drafts will be available soon. Get there, do that, sign up today. We're going to be reviewing tight ends, like I said, and we're going to be starting off with Penn State's Tyler Warren. Okay, so Tyler Warren, 6'5.5", 256 pounds, 31 3/4 inch arms, 9.5 inch hands. Spent 5 years at Penn State, over 2,000 snaps. Did not participate in the combine, but grading wise, this past season, 91.3 offensive grade, 93.4 receiving grade, 52.8 run blocking grade, 1,230 receiving yards, 693 yak, 8 touchdowns, and a 6.9 ADOT. This is a really special prospect. I'm super pumped to talk about him. The way we kind of do it here, Ray and I, because Ray is way too biased with Penn State, he always lets me review them. So this time I'm actually very grateful for that. And the first 3 plays here, Ray thought I was trolling him. I'm actually not. The reason I put these in here, these were the first 3 plays of the game. And I just wanted to show some of the diversity that he offers in his alignment. So first play here, you can see that he's up wide, right? Totally out wide. He's the widest, most receiver. You could go ahead and hit play. It's kind of a nothing play, right? I just want to show, right? Like, this is what this guy can do. He's running true receiver routes right there, right? He's running like an in curl. It's just what he can do. Go to the next play. We're going to show him in a completely different alignment. And he's playing quarterback, right? It's a fumble, messed up handoff. I don't really care. It's not why I'm showing it. I'm just showing this guy's also lining up as kind of like a what's that formation called? Holy cow.
Wildcat quarterback.
Wildcat quarterback. That's it. So can do that too, right? So kind of something special. And here he's lined up in the slot. So he's not even lined up at tight end in any of the first 3 plays of the game. He's slot receiver on this play. And this time he does get the ball. It's a throw out wide. I think I maybe stopped that a little short. Apologies there. But he makes a really nice catch, gets enough separation, uses his big frame to create a boundary for himself to catch his ball. Arms go out wide, secures the catch with his hands. Great play. Okay, so that's really what the first 3 plays were. The only reason I really brought that up. Play 4 here is, again, he's lined up out wide in the slot. You could go ahead and hit play. And it's just an easy win for him. We're going to see a lot of easy wins, but it's a quick in. But look at that, that ability, right? Just get the hands out, 15 yards almost right there. Just super, super easy for him just because of how big his frame is and how easy he can just kind of create that uncomfortable feeling for a DB. So love to see that. Next play here, go ahead and hit play. This is him again in the slot. Basically, all right, just remember, this is like 5 or 6 plays into the game, and we're already on catch 3 for him, right? Which is pretty crazy. Trying to hit him out wide. He ends up dropping the ball, but just wanted to show that he actually has pretty good speed. And number 5 that's guarding him had a really rough day with his hands full with Tyler Warren. But here, I liked at the end of this play the separation and the way that he broke to the football to try to make this play. Did he bring it in? No. But it's something that I say, okay, let's, later in the game, we're going to do this again because you beat him, and we're going to beat him again. So really like that. This is just the other angle of it to show how he gets back to the football. Really wish he brought that in, but again, just nice job at the end of the route. My only knock on this play is I would have liked to seen a little bit more separation during the running of the route. But again, this is like a 6'6" tight end. It's not necessarily going to be the biggest part of his game. Okay, go ahead and hit play. This is him in more of like that wing back tight end position. And I'm just going to fold you. I'm just going to fold the guy that I'm supposed to block. Guy wants to try to get under me. Yeah, that's not going to work. Tyler Warren's a beast. I'm going to drive you into the ground. I'm going to create a nice edge for my guy. Unfortunately, they had some guys out there as well. So it wasn't the best decision for the running back, but again, Tyler Warren did his job. Love to see it. Okay, here he is kind of in that slot role again. Go ahead and hit play. It's just kind of sneaky, quick catch and run, right? I'm just going to sneak into that seam route, right? Sit a little bit comfortably, find space well for my quarterback. I'm not running super fast, right? I don't need to put on my jets because I want to stay in that open window, in that open pocket and find that seam. And he did that and shows a little bit of that athletic after the catch ability right there, right? Another, let's calculate it here, right? He catches it around the 40, 43. Go ahead. So we're gaining another 7, 10, 15, like almost 15 yards after the catch. It's phenomenal, right? For, again, a really large tight end that doesn't necessarily have top end speed. Okay, here he's lined up again in that kind of like wing back tight end spot. Go ahead and hit play. And it's a really, really nice block on an edge rusher. This is like a, a legitimate edge rusher, putting his arm out, trying to create an edge, which I'll give the edge rusher some credit, right? He did set the edge decently well, but he did get driven 5 yards backwards. So that edge got really wide at the end of the day, which credit to Tyler Warren. This is a guy, in my mind, that's probably the best blocking tight end we have this year for sure. And probably the best blocking tight end we've seen in the draft since like Darnell Washington, who, if you remember, that was kind of really the one aspect of his game that we thought would translate. And it's been hard for him to translate it at the next level, just getting playing time, right? But Tyler Warren's a different animal completely. Really good blocker, but has that receiving ability on top of it. Here, go ahead and hit play. I kind of lost my spot. This is, okay, play 9. Yep, so we're kind of pulling on this sweep play. We're getting the outside, and we're literally just driving the safety out of bounds. So, you want him to be a willing blocker downfield. How about we just erase a player from the field of action completely, just create some additional space? That'll work, right? Like that'll work for anybody. So love to see that. Just another example of his blocking ability. It's absolutely phenomenal. Okay, play 10. We're
supposed to do 5, but sure.
Yeah, we're going to
break down play 10.
We're going to go to play 10 here. Go ahead. It's faking a block. He's lined up in that kind of wing. Oh, okay. No, this is just the other angle.
Other angle, yeah.
The other angle. Go ahead. You could just run through it.
Block.
It's just, he just drives the guy out of bounds. Are we in? Okay, yeah, here we go. So it's kind of a fake block, right? We're sneaking out and we're catching the ball, but what are we doing after the catch? Again, another like 15, 20-yard gain after the catch, just because, hey, I'm a big dude and I'm tough and I'm not afraid of contact. And if you try to, like number 5 again, just poor guy, right? Driven out of bounds a couple plays ago, run over here. It's Tyler Warren's a beast. It's going to be tough. Here, just wanted to show like, hey, if tush push doesn't get made illegal this year, Penn State was using him for that, and it works, right? Like this is a big bodied dude and he can do wildcat quarterback stuff and he can take snaps in shotgun. He can take snaps under center. It looks like not bad thing to have on your roster. Last play, this is play 12. This is kind of another sneaky route here, right? We're going to kind of climb. We're just going to continue to climb. And what are we going to do? We're going to make a contested catch on 2 defensive backs, go up, extend, and get the ball. And I wanted to show this one specifically because it adds that other element that we haven't really seen, right? Is how does he do in those contested catches situations? Like that right there, good pause. Like that's what you want, man. That is what you want from your tight end. It's what you want from an alpha receiver. I think about the Jets at 7, and I think to myself, like, hey, Garrett Wilson is a really quick guy, but you do not have a guy like this at all. You have nothing like this. But honestly, talk about the Giants at 3, and if they don't end up going quarterback, it's like, hey, they kind of need a receiver as well. They also have complained about, their offensive line not being good for a long time. How about we go and add a receiver and a blocker? And Tyler Warren adds that to them at 3. Like, I think both New York teams could use a guy like this, but we'll talk about that more later on. Next, we are going to be talking about Mason Taylor from LSU. Mason Taylor from LSU is 21 years old, 6'5", 251 pounds, 32 and a quarter inch arms, 10-inch hands, spent 3 years at LSU, over 2,300 snaps, did not participate in the combine, but grading wise, 67.8 offensive grade, 69.5 receiving grade, 59.1 run blocking grade, 546 receiving yards, 252 yak, 2 touchdowns, 8.6 ADOT. Ray, I'm going to catch my breath. Take it away.
Yeah, Mason Taylor. So we're going to revisit the Ole Miss game. We've seen this one before when we were studying Trey Amos. There's going to be some overlap. You might recognize a few things. But Mason Taylor, as you mentioned, the measurables there, has the bloodlines, right? Jason Taylor's son, Joy Taylor's nephew, for whatever that's worth for some of you. But again, we're just going to jump right into it. I lost my play-by-play notes and only have my overall prospect notes for some reason. So we're just gonna run through this together. We'll go on this journey together. So here he is, wing back again here, going to go cross formation. And this is early on in the game as well. And so his profile, kind of as it read, was more of that silky type of receiver, and you kind of see it here. Again, the cross formation block doesn't really get any knockback there or create any space for the running back to cut underneath him. So again, you're going to see right here, he's kind of bracing for the contact instead of just delivering the contact like we saw with Warren on some of these, kind of hands out, head down, not great posture, just looking to absorb the contact, which he does, and kind of gets knocked back into the lane there. So the physical side early on, not looking so great here on those cross formation blocks. But then here you go in space as he comes across formation, athletic enough to seal a defender off. So whether the sort of brute phone booth blocking is not necessarily a strength of his, you could see him in space here, climbing, attaching to a second level defender, and being able to seal him off to allow a receiver to get some yak. So I thought I had the other angle of that, but I might have taken it out because it actually wasn't that helpful. So we've seen Mason Taylor in space. We've seen him across the formation. Now on this next play here, we're going to see him in line again, kind of that wingback set here, and does an okay job, but again, doesn't really get any push, kind of gets long-armed there, allows the defender to keep that edge and his outside shoulder free to help make a tackle. You're going to see it here. Number 4, again, you got number 4 here, hands to the inside, and then extends, a little bit of a hold, that won't really get called, but extends to keep his leverage to the outside, which, again, not necessarily Mason Taylor's game as we're seeing so far, more that space type of blocking, climbing, as opposed to in a phone booth, in line, or across formation to knock someone back. So just getting a feel for his profile. Now we're going to see him lined up in the slot here. And I like a few things about this here. Seems kind of ho-hum, like, yes, athletic enough to kind of run that deep crosser, but I really like at the top of this route here, we're going to see it right here. That little fake to the vertical there, just to get that defensive back on his heels before continuing to the inside, just allows him that little bit of separation. You see the defensive back off balance here, then he could shield him with his big body, go ahead and make a catch for the chunk play to the sideline here. We'll see if we can get a glimpse of that this angle here as well. Just right there, that little just hesitation, that little stutter right before that break, and he allows himself to gain some separation, makes nice hands catch, nice chunk play for a first down. So little nuance to his game there, pretty smooth. And then here again, just kind of running the crosser here. Seems simple. You might recognize this from the Trey Amos breakdown, which you could find in our videos as well. But what I want to really just highlight here is you'll see from the other angle, he doesn't really lose any ground once he hits his stride. So once he hits his stride, Trey Amos is a cornerback here, number 9. That's who's on him here. There's no ground being made up. So right here, you're going to see the same level of separation throughout the route until he makes his catch. So once he hits his stride, he's got that deceptive sort of gliding ability here, that smoothness that doesn't look like he's running quite fast, but even a cornerback is not making up ground against him. So here we are again in the slot here. And this is a play we've all seen before, right? The big scramble drill where he cuts back to the outside, comes back to the ball, actually gets ruled down, but kind of slips 2 defenders here and runs to the end zone before being ruled down. You see it by the ref here. But I want to really focus in on even just the start of this route here from the slot. So again, he has inside leverage already on the corner, but again, at the top of this route here, he's going to do a little bit of a lean and use his body to separate. So right here, if Nussmeier isn't sort of flushed out to the sideline here and had a nice pocket, I mean, this is a nice, just standard, just dig win here for the tight end over the middle for a first down. So this is a big play on its own, even before the scramble drill takes place, where then he cuts to the corner and then again comes back to the football. In the NFL, he would not be ruled down, I don't believe. I don't believe he was actually touched here before getting the ball. So in the NFL, he could get back up, would have slipped 2 defenders and scored a touchdown here. But knee down, ruled down in college. But again, the win initially right here. Again, if Nussmeier is not flushed out, this is a win for the tight end again against Trey Amos, a corner here. Look at that separation at the top of a route. So he's not doing this against even safeties or just linebackers. He's doing this against corners that are well regarded in this class as top 50 prospects at the very least. So just on his own, before the play breaks down, he would have had a nice chunk play over the middle before obviously initiating the scramble drill, coming back to the ball, and then showing some of that yak ability he has as well. So Mason Taylor, a lot of nuance to his game as a receiver. We're going to talk about it when we do the rankings towards the end of this episode, but a lot to like in the receiving game, a lot of nuance to his game. I'm a big fan.
All right, next we have Elijah Arroyo from Miami, 22 years old, 6'5", 250 pounds, 33-inch arms, 10-inch hands. Spent 4 years at Miami, 998 snaps. He wasn't really a starter until this year, which is interesting. At the combine, just did bench 22 reps. Grading wise, 71.7 offensive grade, 73.6 receiving grade, 61.3 run blocking grade, 590 receiving yards, 313 yak yards, 7 touchdowns, and 11.1 ADOT.
Love it. All right, so let's do it. So we're going to watch Miami versus Georgia Tech. You see him here as by the arrow lined up in the slot, Elijah Arroyo. You can also notice by the turf tape. So if you're familiar with this game, you probably guessed what play is coming up here since it's very early on. Here he is in the slot, just kind of splits the seam there, ball's right on him, and then at that point, you're not catching him even if you're a defensive back. He has the speed where you're not going to make up ground on him. So yeah, nice long touchdown early on in the game for Miami. And what I really want to focus in on, I wish the end zone angle would have shown this better. It did not, so I didn't include it here. But again, so he's kind of splitting these defenders in the slot here, but this ball's already out and on him right as he gets his head turned. So he really, if we can slow it down, maybe right here, he's not looking, and that ball's already in the air right over here, and he has not even looked back to the quarterback yet. Ward has seen this, recognized it, and just let it rip. Ball's right on him right as he turns around and just reflex to catch it right across his chest plate here. And then at that point, it's just a foot race. And Elijah Arroyo is not going to lose many of those. So pretty good game speed there to not get caught from behind. Now we're going to see him lined up again in the box in the line of scrimmage here. Watch the turf tape. And as a blocker, wasn't asked to do terribly much. It's not terrible. I think he holds it as sort of an initial pop better than maybe someone like a Mason Taylor here, hands to the inside. And then at that point, the play just the defender sort of flows to the play. But, not a huge knockback or anything like that. But you kind of see just kind of holds his ground there, doesn't get knocked back or extended against like some other tight ends in this class do. So it's not necessarily his forte, but kind of a net neutral there. The old kind of willing, but maybe not yet quite able blocker. So just keep that in mind. We're going to see him lined up wing back here. By the way, Chris, I followed the rules. If you haven't noticed, it's just 5 plays that we're going to go through here. Just FYI. But again, number 8 in the red zone here, and just kind of want to really break this route down again here. You see Ward on the floor. So keep in mind what we just saw with Mason Taylor on some of those in routes at the top of his route. It's just not quite the same here. You don't have that same sort of stutter, that same shake at the top of the route to gain any separation here. We'll see it from this other angle here. Again, number 8, he's got the long towel and the turf tape on the arms. So kind of takes that inside release, but there's nothing really to it at the top of the route there. The defender can just kind of ride him to the inside. He doesn't do anything to, again, just sort of lean on him and create any separation there. Maybe a little bit of a tug, but you kind of see the difference in nuance between the route here when Mason Taylor runs it versus Elijah Arroyo. So Arroyo's a big body, but I'd like to see more lean, more shake at the top here, even if the ball doesn't ultimately head his way because of number 7 here over the top. I want to see him separate from that initial defender. And again, these are trends that we identify and then show examples of where we want to see more of that nuance in that aspect of his game. So top of the screen lined up in the slot. Another thing I notice here, he's got a little bit of stiffness to his upper body. He's kind of sharp in the lower half, but right here, just kind of trips over the defender here, doesn't get a nice clean release off of the catch technique from the defender, and that disrupts the switch between him and the receiver at the top of the screen here, and really just disrupts the whole play and forces Cam Ward to look elsewhere. I mean, he does hit the backside receiver there, number 3, but the initial read was this switch, and not being able to get a clean release off the catch just disrupts the whole thing. Again, you want to see him allow himself to be set free, or to set himself free from those catches there to allow the play to develop. And that nuance is just kind of missing here. I think this is the last play, and then just another example of this, kind of the crosser. So there's two schools of thought on this play in particular. Either you're trying to clear things out for the receiver at the top of the screen here underneath, which I believe is the case because you kind of have 3 crossing to the left there, and then the top of the receiver, the isolated receiver, going to the right of Cam Ward. But he doesn't really disrupt the defender at all. He doesn't make the defender go around or underneath. He can kind of stay on his path. So if that's what you're trying to do, you don't do a good enough job of it. If you're trying to separate yourself to the front pylon, there's nothing to it there either. So I think he was trying to clear out for the receiver at the top of the screen here, and it just doesn't. I mean, at this point, have a feel for the game, give a little shake to the defender assigned to you so that you can stay in the path of the receiver that's trailing the ISO guy here, if that's the main read, which I believe it is. He doesn't really do either. He just kind of gets caught in between and just kind of runs a dead route. And that leaves Cam Ward in a lurch, and again, allows him to get hit in the pocket when he shouldn't have. He takes a sack that if Arroyo does a better job of picking this defender legally here, that could be a touchdown. So there's nuance to the game. I like the athletic profile. He's got some good size. He's pretty athletic, a little stiff, but I'm not seeing the nuance I saw with Mason Taylor.
All right. Awesome breakdown, Ray. We are going to move on to Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green, 6'3", 241 pounds, 32.25-inch arms, 9.25-inch hands. Spent 3 years at Bowling Green, 1,493 snaps at the combine, 4.71 40 time, 1.56 10-yard, 34-inch vert, 9.10 broad, 6.97 3-cone, 4.39 shuttle, and 22 reps on bench. Grading wise this past season, 95.9 offensive grade, 96.4 receiving grade, 75.2 run blocking grade, 1,555 receiving yards, 873 yak, 10 touchdowns, 7.5 ADOT. So this is a highly, highly productive receiver with great athleticism that played at a smaller school, right? So we're going to see a little bit inflated numbers, but this is against Penn State, which is why I chose this game. This is probably the closest thing he played to an NFL talent, right? So go ahead and hit play. First play here is kind of that, let me sneak out of the tight end position into a straight fade. Great throw by the quarterback, but risky throw. And the safety just can't get there in time. Great catch, right? I think the thing I wanted to point out here, one, obviously the speed to break out of his route and just kind of build and build and build on that route and getting faster and faster. But on top of that, it's look at that concentration to make that catch. I mean, you have to be kind of like saying Hail Marys in your head as you're running this route because you're thinking you're going to get killed. But, stays super concentrated. DB just kind of misses with that, right? The safety just can't get there in time. He gets his hands out. He makes a catch with his hands, not his body. Love that. Holds it, pulls it in, doesn't get messed up by the contact. Big gain. So nice start to the game for Fannin Jr. Second play, just showing him as more of a willing blocker. Let's go ahead and put that. So he's not a big guy, right? But that right there shows a little bit of an aggression, right? That's Abdul Carter, number 11. And he's pushing him, right? He's pushing him. He's maybe a little grabby. It's a little bit of a double team as well, but I like to see the drive and that he doesn't give up, right? His feet are continuing to push. He's continuing to drive his legs, and it's a decent gain for the running back off of that block. So like to see that from him again. That's something that I wouldn't expect him to excel at, but he does, again, he's willing. Play 3 here, kind of like a pick play, but it's a touchdown. So I wanted to show it. He's also lined up kind of in a slot role. It's a tight slot, but let's go ahead and hit play. Yep. So a little bit of a pick play, like I said, but that speed is really special. So he's able to create that quick separation, gets the quick catch and runs it right into the end zone. It's a nice play, but it's designed. Not learning that much from it. We're going to go back here. Okay, this is kind of funny. I just showed this one, a little comical, but this is him throwing the ball. And that's a pretty good throw for a tight end, right? It's a trick play. And, if you have the best athlete on the field as your tight end, you're going to use him as a receiver. You're going to use him for whatever you want, right? That's what Penn State does with Tyler Warren too. But here, Harold Fannin throws a really nice pass down the field for like a 40-yard gain. So just thought I'd show that. Kind of interesting. Here we go again. Just another really clean and good release. Nice little stutter on the outside, breaking inside to create separation. Again, uses his hands, extends his hands to make the catch. But it's really that initial aspect of this route that I like, right? He steps outside to square up the DB, then cuts inside to create separation, gets the catch, little yak. Love it. It's a big gain.
I got to find out who that DB is. I got to be upset again.
And then we're going to show the last play here. I only did 6 for this one. And this one is a quick slant. And it's a nice win. It's a really nice throw. But I wanted to show a play where he had a little bit more yak to him. So that's what this play is here, right? A little bit more yak after the catch, right? Continuing to fight. So I think, again, like I was surprised because there are so many aspects to his game because of his size that I thought, all right, this is just a receiver, or this is a guy that maybe you have to play out in the slot more than you could play in line. But I saw that he can do more than that. We'll talk about that after. But we're going to wrap things up here, Ray. I think this is going to be you, and I think we're going to Colston Loveland, right? So Michigan tight end Colston Loveland, 21 years old, 6'6", 248 pounds, 32.75 inch arms and 10-inch hands. Spent 3 years at Michigan, 1,361 snaps. Did not participate at the combine, but grading-wise this past season, 85.9 offensive grade, 90.6 receiving grade, 53.3 run blocking grade, 582 yards, 290 yak, 5 touchdowns, 7.1 ADOT.
Before we jump in, have you heard or seen the discourse around the arm length measurements at the combine and how apparently they got them wrong?
I did. So, I mean, I haven't heard that about anyone besides Will Campbell, but it's all been about Will Campbell, how Will Campbell's arms were like an inch longer at his pro day, but his wingspan was shorter.
Yeah, which is super weird. But apparently for most of all the linemen that went to and it's not just the linemen, it's just people are focusing on the linemen.
Sure.
But all the players who went to like the Shrine Bowl and the other all-star games that had their measurements taken then were all consistently measured longer at those games than they were at the combine. And apparently people were mentioning at the combine that whoever was measuring the arms was doing it wrong, which is interesting. Maybe Colston Loveland has even longer arms, 33 plus. And I was kind of wondering, like, damn, why does everybody have some short arms in this offensive tackle class? That might be the reason why. So just something to note with Colston Loveland, because I always thought he had a great frame, and the arm length isn't as important here, but it still matters. And so if he's 33 plus actually, as opposed to what was it, 32 and 6/8 or 3/4 there, whatever it was. I mean, that helps. Every little bit helps. But I just wanted to see if you also saw that too, because that throws a wrench into some things.
It totally does, because when we were reviewing offensive tackles and even the guards, but really offensive tackles, like Kelvin Banks, for example, like I was a little concerned saying, all right, like, he might be one of the best built guys at tackle, but like he's even short. So, maybe that does change a little bit of what I think about him. So something definitely to consider.
Yeah. But all right, Colston Loveland. So if I have to watch this Illinois game and these uniforms where it looks like Michigan's playing the 1937 Packers, so do you. But we're going to get into it. Michigan tight ends, they have a bit of a history there. So you're going to see him lined up at tight end alongside the left tackle here. We're just going to let it run. And okay, just great route off the line. And that happened. That's Michigan quarterback play in 2024 for you pretty much all season. That explains why they went 7-5 or 7-6 or whatever it was, or 8-5, whatever it was. I mean, this is a great route off the line. And again, I talk about it with Mason Taylor, but he's a bit more explosive here with that sort of shake right there, and then just gain some separation and gave himself a great window for the quarterback here. So you had the safety in the middle of the field. I mean, this is just, it's there. This is a huge play. If he could be hit in stride, he could get 20 plus yards of yak even if he's hit in stride here, as opposed to having to dive for an errant pass. But again, just blows by the defender, has the athleticism, just blow by number 14 there and get himself open downfield. And unfortunately, gets no credit for it. It's not shown in the stat sheet at all. But
there was even some like really nice extension on that at the end, right? Like it shows some athleticism that like to be able to do that, right? Like run your route and you're going full speed and then to extend like that, it's like, that's really good athleticism.
Yeah. If he had Shrine Game arm length instead of NFL Combine arm length, might have caught that one. So here he goes, tight end now alongside the right tackle here. And we're just going to see him in the run game, climb to the second level and just seal off a defender. So, and then Michigan fumbles. So another reason why they only won 7 games this year. But great block, seals the defender at the second level, seals the backer. And, he's 10 yards downfield. That's a first down prior to the fumble. So we're going to see it from this angle again. He's just going to climb, not get caught up in the wash, just completely seal off the backer here. And that's a heck of a block. Is it a knockback pancake? No, but this also isn't a video game. That's a heck of a block in line from Loveland here. And then again, in line, that's grip strength right there. I mean, that's just great positioning on number 9. Hands inside, keeps the feet moving, nice wide base. And the defender's just done. He has no chance at this play here. So I think we have it from the other angle as well here. Again, just watch number 9. If you're just evaluating number 9 here, I mean, gets stood up and just completely washed from the play. It's a nice block again from Colston Loveland. This is not just a receiver. Here we go again alongside left tackle. Another route here. And I really love this. Again, I'm going to harp on nuance for some of these tight ends here. So he doesn't get the ball here. I think the quarterback was a bit spooked by the underneath defender. But this defender here, this corner, I assume, has deep third, and he has outside leverage, and Loveland's running a speed out. So this is pretty much not designed for Loveland to win his route, but he's going to find the blind spot of the defender and then just do a nice speed cut here and gain that separation for himself. So you're going to notice right about here, he's in the blind spot and begins that speed cut right away. And I mean, just look at the separation against the deep third defender. The outside leverage is completely gone. It's erased. To me, an NFL quarterback, I mean, this is a 20-yard gain right here for an NFL quarterback. I guess he sees the defender sinking underneath, but an NFL quarterback is leveling that throw, and that's a nice catch at the 40 for Loveland at the next level. So a route that was not designed for him to win, and he wins anyway and gets a lot of separation because he just has that feel for the defender's blind spot downfield. Here he is again in the slot, and again, just kind of how you saw with Warren. I just want to see him go up and make a play in traffic down the sideline here. It's not a ton of separation downfield again, but he has the ball skills. He's going to go ahead and be aggressive and make a play on the ball. So that's how we're going to end it here. The final play with Loveland here to the left side of the screen down the sideline. He's going to go up and make a play and take a hit and hold on to the football downfield. So we saw some downfield movement. We saw some nuanced separation here. We saw some blocking in a phone booth. We saw some blocking in motion. Michigan, I think the Michigan offense really let him down in the receiving game, but we saw him in every aspect of a tight end kind of do and check the boxes that you want to see from a tight end as a young player in a well-balanced offense. So Colston Loveland kind of checks every box for me.
All right. We did that pretty quick, Ray. 33 minutes in. That's not bad. That's like a record for us here.
Yeah.
We're going to welcome in audio-only listeners. If you are just joining, well, first, you can go to YouTube and watch the full tight end breakdown that we did. If you are a YouTube listener, like and subscribe. Hit that like button, hit subscribe so that you can see the rest of our content as it comes. But again, audio-only people, we are reviewing tight ends today. We went through our top 5 for the NFL draft, and we are now going to start talking about where we rank them, right? And what we think of them overall as prospects. Ray, the way we typically do this is we start with 5. I think that makes sense. Let's do that again here today. Why don't you kick it off? Tell me who you have at number 5.
So I'll start by saying I like this tight end group as a whole. But at 5, I have Elijah Arroyo. And if I could pull up my prospect notes, I think really what holds him back from being ranked higher is just some of the stiffness in his upper body, but has some pop in his legs. He has sharp cuts and can break away like we saw early on, but the upper body stiffness kind of limits his effectiveness at the top of his routes. He's willing to scrap but not an impact blocker, kind of the old willing blocker cliche. I think he has good reaction time in his hands, but again, he lacks some sort of nuance to separate, doesn't do the little things naturally, it seems, to break free and kind of separate himself from other tight ends either in his class or in the NFL that may have an athletic build and have some nice athletic testing numbers. It's the little things that kind of separate people at that position or separate players at that position. And I didn't see that from his game consistently enough to rank him any higher than an otherwise impressive group of tight ends. So I have Elijah Arroyo at 5.
Okay, well, we're starting off on the same page because that's where I have him too, for all of the reasons you said. And really for me, for those that don't really know the PFF system, PFF will rank a play on a +2, -2, and anything in between scale. And most plays where nothing really happens for a player, you get a 0, right? You didn't impact it positively. You didn't impact it negatively. I just saw so much of that with Elijah Arroyo, where like most plays, I'm not really seeing him be a difference maker, right? So for me, it's hard for me to say like this is a guy I really like or a guy I really don't like based on that information. Also, like the play you showed first with Cam Ward just lasering that ball in there, I start to think like how much of it was he was playing with what is going to be the number 1 pick in this draft most likely, right? And Cam Ward was elevating this guy in the receiving game. So, I don't want to knock Elijah Arroyo too much because I do think he's a good player, but to me, he's probably a guy I start to take a risk on in the 4th round in an NFL draft, which means in all 22, if you like him, he's a 7th round pick for you. If not, you might be able to get him in free agency.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The difference making wasn't there. And sometimes the difference making at tight end is subtle, right? You don't have to be Brock Bowers to be a difference maker, but you have to do some of the little things that separate yourself. And you don't see that enough from him.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that the 5 and 4, whatever order you have them, I think it's pretty chalk that it's Arroyo and Mason Taylor. I don't know if you have Mason Taylor at 4 as well, but I do.
At 3, so tell me about your 4.
Oh, very interesting. No, Mason Taylor is definitely my 4.
Tell me about it, man, because I have him at 3.
Okay, fantastic. So again, for audio-only listeners, the LSU tight end, 21 years old, 6'5", 250, 3 years at LSU, didn't do the combine, but 67.08 offensive grade overall this past season. I think he's just a very, very good athlete with great size, right? Love the size. It's funny because him and Arroyo measurement-wise are pretty close, but Mason Taylor wears it way differently, and he just looks like a completely different animal for me than Arroyo does. So I like Mason Taylor's build a lot more, and I like his movement skills a ton more, right? You said Arroyo's a little stiff. Taylor is definitely a more natural mover, so really like that. I also thought he was a willing blocker more so than Arroyo, but again, not an overwhelming blocker. I thought route running wise, there are some things that he does well. I just didn't see it being like fully fluid in that, like if we're putting him, again, if he's not the best blocker, is he the best receiver? And I don't think so. I think he's a step down in terms of his receiving skills. I think he's decent at route running. I just don't think he's like a fully crazy difference maker on the football field in terms of his receiving ability. I also didn't think he found space super, super well in terms of like sitting and waiting and being like not necessarily always just like running a sprint to where you need to be, which is a nuance to the position that some of the other guys do have. And also, like, interestingly, right, we showed that he, does have good speed. He will get that separation. But considering how athletic he was, I kind of thought there would be a little bit more to it, which maybe you disagree with, but kind of what my observation was from watching the film. I do like Mason Taylor a lot, so I have him kind of more in that like late 2nd round, early 3rd round range. So like a decent step up from Arroyo, but still like not anywhere near kind of like a top 50 pick in my mind.
I was going to ask you about Fannin, but we'll hold off on that. So for me, I feel like Mason Taylor, I thought he was smooth enough that, like I said, I think I used the word deceptive in the breakdown. That's what I think it is. Like, he's not running that fast, but he is actually he's just not getting caught. And the difference between, because I like him and I like Harold Fannin Jr. a lot, the difference between 3 and 4 for me and having Taylor above him is, I think you said it, 6'5", 250 versus 6'3", 2 in the 240s. And that might be a bulk up for the combine type of move there for Fannin, it seems. And so I think the size is going to have an impact at the next level. And I just think, just again, everything that Taylor does is smooth, and I think there's more sort of meat on the bone there that he can grow into as a prospect because of that fluidity that he has. So just going through my notes, he's not Pat Frymuth or Darnell Washington. The closer to the line he is, the less effective he is as a blocker. Better at climbing and sealing than actual impact and drive blocking, but works his body well over the middle of the field.
Are you talking about Mason Taylor or
Mason
Fannin?
Taylor? Mason Taylor.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Yeah. Next note is LSU needed to target him more often. Maybe if LSU had tampered with Fannin in the portal, maybe they could have also targeted him more often. But when they think of, I wrote down, especially for the Ole Miss game, when LSU started focusing on players, not plays, that's when Mason Taylor started getting a lot of targets late in the game and got them back in that game late in the fourth quarter. Doesn't have the initial burst or acceleration to leave defenders behind, but is really deceptive because of his smooth strides that once he hits, it's hard for defenders to kind of hawk him down. To me, that's just a really annoying tight end to play against for about 11 years. The ones that like age really gracefully. And that's just what I see. But I almost feel like, to sum it up, he moves like someone who would be 6'3", 241 pounds, but he's 6'5", 250. And I just think there's more meat on the bone there. I think there's more to grow into as a player, but there's no obvious deficiencies in his game for me to knock him. Whereas I have some concerns about Fannin's ceiling given his size in the NFL. Can he do some of the things that he did in college when he's playing grown men for 17 games a year and beyond, as opposed to, 9 in the MAC and 3 against Power 5 opponents? It does make a difference, and you kind of need some size and frame there that I don't believe he possesses that someone like Mason Taylor does.
Sure. I think, Mason Taylor, tell me if this is a bad comp or not, but a guy that went in the first round and, was highly regarded out of college, but Noah Fant a little bit is kind of like what I saw. And that's
Fant.
I did like him. I did, but I kind of was like a little bit burned by it, right? Like, this is a guy that has very similar traits, good speed, really good size, decent route runner, but not like fantastic. And you're kind of saying to yourself, like, why wasn't he a little bit better? Like, why wasn't he grading a little bit higher? Why wasn't he a little bit more productive, right? And so far, what are we in? Like year 6 or 7 of Noah, maybe not that much, actually, probably like year 5 or 6 of Noah Fant. And it hasn't been that great, right? He hasn't really reached that first round ceiling. And if you would redraft him, you'd probably say, yeah, like his production so far has been like a late second, early third round pick, which is where I would take him again if I had to, right? And that's kind of what in my mind I just can't separate Mason Taylor from. Meanwhile, when we get to Harold Fannin Jr., I don't think he's nearly as good as a receiver as this player, but Isaiah Likely is a player that's been very productive in the NFL, coming from a smaller school, but highly, highly productive in college as a receiver, much smaller, small frame. Harold Fannin Jr. kind of getting similar storyline vibes from, right? So for audio only, it's Bowling Green's tight end, 6'3", 241, spent 3 years at Bowling Green, but 4'7", 140 at the combine, 95.9 offensive grade. Like, this is a guy, again, that was really, really productive. And I think, I would be more concerned about him if I didn't watch that Penn State game and say, he did fine. Like, he held himself really, really well against what I think is, what was a top, 4 team in the nation last year. So, if he can do it against them, it tells me that when he gets to the NFL level, this guy's going to be able to compete, right? I thought he had, you showed Colston Loveland. So now I kind of maybe want to retract this a little bit, but one of the best releases off the line of scrimmage of a tight end that I've seen in years, right?
It's good.
Very explosive off the line of scrimmage in terms of when he runs his routes. Again, really nice receiving ability. I thought he was a much more willing blocker than his size would suggest. He doesn't get overwhelmed, which I think is great. Very sure hands, uses his hands to catch the ball as well. Doesn't rely on his body for, some of these tight ends do that pretty often. He's got really good speed, right? 4.71 is great for a tight end. If he put 10 pounds on, we'd be saying that's elite, right? But he's not overly strong. He relies a little bit too much on designed plays to get the production that he has, right? But that was a knock I had on Brock Bowers last year, and it didn't seem to hurt him. He may take time to see the field consistently, considering that size, and he's going to need to develop more against harder competition. And I don't think he offers the same positional flexibility as the top two guys I have on this, on my draft board at tight end. And, it's funny because like I think David Njoku is much bigger than him, but there was a little David Njoku in there, right? Like in the way that he played the game, which I like a lot. But I think Isaiah Likely is a little bit more of a of a realistic comp for him. So I have Harold Fannin Jr. as a second round pick, but more of like I'd be fine with him kind of like mid second round. If somebody took him early second, I think it'd be a little too early because I do think there's, more elite positions. The edge position is so deep this year, right? Like positions like that, you kind of want to get in that early second round. So more in the mid second round, but a guy I really like.
I could go a lot of different directions with this. I'll just say I saw more Hawkinson with Taylor than Fant. But I do like Harold Fannin Jr. a lot, and he could get to the NFL and be fined 17 games against that schedule because he did kind of block his tail off. It's different doing that 3 times a year against Penn State, Texas A&M, and one more big opponent, as opposed to every single week. And but if he's fine, he picks up where he left off in college overall, then by all means, I mean, I think they're pretty close. I like them both. I would have Mason Taylor more like mid to late second round, and I have Harold Fannin more as like an early third. So it's not as if there's a ton of separation there. I just, I like 6'5", 250 tight ends, and 6'3", 241. You start to get into a situation where if they're not a plus athlete and that receiving aspect of their game isn't quite as difference making as you had hoped once they step into the league, is he going to be a knockback type of blocker at that size? He did it in college, but it is a different beast. If you're, barely 240 pounds, you're 240 pounds in February. How much do you weigh in week 9? Halfway through the season, are you in the 230s and so forth? So just more questions to be answered that he just doesn't, let's be real, he didn't have the chance to answer. He wasn't at a big school like LSU. He wasn't playing an SEC schedule every single week, and doesn't have that natural frame though that Mason Taylor does regardless. So it's just going to leave you with a bit more questions and answers. But yes, good player by all means. I'm not poo-pooing him as a prospect at all. I mean, this is still a day 2 player for me. I think some of the discourse early on was talking about him possibly going in like round 4, him being Harold Fannin Jr. And I didn't get that at all. Like, I have questions, but that's not someone I wait on day 3 on, not with that production, that athleticism, and the way he got that production. Yes, you mentioned they schemed a lot up for him, which is going to happen when you're by far the best player on your team. But if you are going to catch a pass in traffic against the toughest team on your schedule, if I see you catching it with your hands, that goes a long way for me. So that does make a difference. So yes, I am high on both those players, even if we haven't flip-flopped.
For sure. And I think it was Sam and Steve, who are now with the 33rd team, talking about it. They were like, Mark Andrews is on the last year of his deal. Ravens love to use a lot of 2 tight end. It's like, what happens if they get him, right? Like, you're going to start talking about this guy a lot differently. But I think there's maybe going to be more teams as we continue to see these running quarterbacks enter the league that like to use 12 personnel. And I can see Harold Fannin really thriving in that kind of same environment, right? So I'd like to see that happen for him, but we'll see. We'll see what the draft kind of produces. Assuming we both have the same number 2, why don't you talk about Colston Loveland first?
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised when I studied Colston Loveland. Obviously, following the Big Ten, heard of him, knew he was a great player, but I wondered how great of a prospect he was. Right? Was that a bit? I mean, because everyone was a stud on Michigan in 2023, right? They had the most experienced team perhaps ever in college football. There were studs all over the place. The offense was humming. They knew the plays that were coming. I always have to say that. But in any event, I knew he was a great player, but studying him can sometimes tell a different story. When you study a player, again, when the rest of the house is sleeping, you kind of got that end zone view, you got the sky cam, and you've eliminated all the noise surrounding the different situations of the game and are just watching play to play. And Colston Loveland was even better than I thought he would be. So going through my notes, first word is explosive, has good shake as a route runner, good pop in the run game as a blocker, whether that's in space or in a phone booth. He's effective at either, can climb to the second level, has great ball skills. The only thing that maybe separates him from the top guy at his position in the class is he's not a phenomenal yards after catch guy, which separates him from the top there. But otherwise, good frame, good hands, good movement skills, good nuance. Pretty much checks every single damn box. To me, I mean, I only have probably 15, 14-ish first round grades in this class, but he might be like a top 20 player for me, even if I grade him as a second rounder. He's a high second rounder to me. He might be one of the 20 best players in this class. And the more I talk about him, I don't even think it's might be. I think he is one of the top 20 players in this class. I was very pleasantly surprised by him. He checks every box, and it's good to see a tight end from that Michigan offense because they are asked to do both aspects of the game, right? Receiving and run blocking equally. You have to do both in order to get on the field there, especially with the style of offense they had this past year. I'm a huge fan of Colston Loveland.
All right. Well, I, again, for audio only, Colston Loveland out of Michigan, 6'6", 248, 3 years at Michigan, 1,300 career snaps, didn't do the combine, but an 85.9 overall grader in PFF grading. I agree with everything you said, Ray. I might be slightly lower on him than you are, but it's funny, right? Because we had Brock Bowers, we had Tyler Warren, and Colston Loveland is kind of like this like red-headed stepsister that's falling in third, whereas like in most draft classes, like we're saying, like this is an easy number one tight end of the class, right? He's a phenomenal football player. I think, your description of him was perfect. And one of the things I really like is just like, this isn't a guy that just jumped onto the scene and did great. This is a guy that produced multiple years, right? As a very, very high player and also won a national championship, right? Was a huge producer for that national championship team. I think he's a good battler with his hands and blocking plays, which helps kind of compensate for that slimmer frame. I think he's a very willing blocker. He has sure hands as a receiver. I have the same note as you. He's okay after the catch, but he's not great, right? That's not going to be his bread and butter. I think not being overwhelming as a blocker definitely separates the top two guys for me, right? Like that's a big part of this. I also like one thing I notice with tight ends that have that kind of build, right? 6'6", 248. So in reality, he's not that different build than Harold Fannin Jr. when they go out there, right? He's longer and skinny, even though he has, maybe like 8 to 10 more pounds. He's 3 inches taller. So it just kind of evens out. I think he's a little narrower. He doesn't have as wide of a frame as I would like for a tight end. I also can kind of tell, right? Like great off the line of scrimmage, amazing burst off the line of scrimmage. Love that. But he runs a little bit with his upper body leaning forward, which is probably just because he's super, super long. And it creates a little bit of an awkward thing to watch, right? It's not super smooth that you would want or like wiggly as you would want from a receiving tight end like I think Colston Loveland truly is. I like him, though. I really like him. And I think he kind of falls into that bucket, which I hate saying because, of course, it's like another white dude. And I'm being a little racist here towards white dudes. But like, Mason Graham, Brock Bowers, it's like, I think he's a better football player than he is an athlete. And I think that he just is going to produce better than maybe I'm going to give him credit for. And I'm okay with that, right? Like I'm okay, me being, a all 22 GM saying, if this isn't a guy I absolutely love, and I know other people are going to be super high on, maybe I'm okay missing out on him. But at the end of the day, I know that he's going to do really, really well, and I'm going to end up regretting it, right? Like I did last year with Brock Bowers. But we both have Tyler Warren at number 1, which is Penn State's tight end. He's 23 years old, 6'5.5", 256 pounds, spent 5 years at Penn State, 2,000 career snaps, didn't do the combine, 91.3 offensive grade, exploded on the scene this year. I'm going to go first since you're going to overfluff him. So I'll kind of, I'll give a real analysis here.
Anything this segment. I'm just going to sip my water there and let you have at it.
Cool. The reason I showed 12 plays of this guy is because I think he is that special, right? When you're talking about tight end prospects, Brock Bowers last year was the best receiving tight end we've ever seen, was phenomenal, right? But he isn't the best blocking tight end we've ever seen. Tyler Warren might be. Like he might be in that category of he's as good as a blocker as we will see at tight end. But what if you also added on top of that he is an outstanding receiver, right? Like very, very high-end receiver at the tight end position and plays it like how the top tight ends in the NFL right now, maybe save Brock Bowers, kind kind of win, right? When you watch when you watch Travis Kelce, when you watch Mark Andrews, when you watch Rob Gronkowski from a few years ago, right? Those bigger body tight ends, they win with body control, and they use their bodies as a weapon to screen themselves and create space in ways that smaller tight ends can't do that, right? But you have to be a certain level of athlete to do that, right? You can't just be big. You have to be big. You have to be strong. You have to be athletic. And I think Tyler Warren has all of those characteristics in him. He's a good route runner. He's the QB's best friend, right? He was always there when Drew Aller needed him to, and Drew Aller sometimes still made the wrong decision, but he was always there. Uses his body really well. I said that, right? Boxes out, very strong, willing blocker, very nice yak ability. That's the other thing that kind of adds to this, right? Is like Brock Bowers was awesome after the catch. Tyler Warren might be just as good after the catch because he's so big. He breaks tackles unbelievably, right? Tush push. You can use him in the tush push. It's just kind of like a little added nuance there, but like you really could. If you had a 256-pound guy that can run the ball like an animal, you have no problem putting him under center and saying, all right, I'm going to give my quarterback a break so he doesn't get hurt, and I'm going to end up using my tight end instead, which is great process, right? Another thing I really liked about him, again, I think is a big thing that separates him, his catch radius is fantastic. He goes up with, to get the ball, he extends his arms and he brings the ball in repeatedly, something that a lot of these other tight ends don't have in them. The negatives, though, right? Underwhelming speed. He's not a separator. That's going to be a problem at times at the next level, but because he uses his body so well, he really compensates for that. So will he struggle against some of the bigger safeties in the league? I don't know. We'll see that. But that's typically what teams use when you have to play against a Rob Gronkowski, when you have to play against a Travis Kelce. I said Rob Gronkowski, did I? I hope so. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
With those kind of players, you have to really get one of those big safeties to defend them. And I think whatever kind of division Tyler Warren goes to, the three other teams in that division are all going to be looking at safety, right? They're all going to need that safety help, trying to figure out where Nick Emenwari is going to get drafted in the second or third round, or he's going to end up going in the first round, I bet. But I think he should be a third round pick. If you could get him in the third round to erase a Tyler Warren, some games, if you can do that, then that's really what teams are going to need to do.
I want to make sure I heard you right. Who's that you said?
I know it's a ridiculous theory. Nick Emenwari.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. But the thing, Tyler Warren is that human being that anything he does that's athletically inclined, he's just really good at. Okay, in the Penn State football program, he was the best basketball player on the team. He was a former quarterback. He was like the best freaking like ping pong player. Like that's just Tyler Warren, who he is. Anything athletically inclined, he's just naturally really good at it. The thing that separates him is that he can win. Yes, the yards after catch is phenomenal, and he can win with yards after catch by slipping a defender, like you saw in that Oregon game on the sideline there, or just running through a defender and just lowering his shoulder and bowling someone over. You saw that against Notre Dame to start the game. He just destroyed Xavier Watts in the first quarter of that game, kind of like to try to set the tone there. But he can win every which way and go up and get the ball. You forgot to mention he can snap the ball. He did that against USC. He can snap and then catch the ball in the same play. He really does just do it all. He's like watching Tyler Warren. If Tyler Warren is on your team and the ball goes in his direction, or he just starts with the ball in his hands to start the play, it's just like a hit of dopamine. Like you're like, okay, everything is going to be okay because Tyler Warren is here to save the day. That's basically what he is. He was the pacifier for the Penn State offense that had just horrendous receiving output from the wide receiver position and no other weapons in the pass game really to speak of. It was pretty much all Tyler Warren. And you see how far it still took Penn State in this era of college football. That's pretty incredible. He really does do it all. Good hands, can have a drop here or there concentration-wise, but for the most part will make the tough catches as well. And like you mentioned, shields his body well to be a good possession receiver or uses his body well to shield as a possession receiver over the middle of the field. So he really does it all. Slight half-quarter step down from Brock Bowers, maybe. But that's about it. He doesn't concede much else when it comes to just, again, that really high end ceiling, because again, he does everything well. He fits in any offense, and he's going to be a quarterback's best friend at the next level. But yeah, explosive, smooth, good hands, great blocker, physical, right kind of guy. He checks every box.
Yeah, and we're going to start talking pretty soon about our big boards. And I think he's an interesting one when we have that conversation, because I think he gets that elite tag for me, right? I think he falls into that elite bucket of prospects, which in this draft, I think, now I'm at maybe 4. But the quarterbacks are going to get, pushed up the rankings just because they're quarterbacks. And you kind of start to think, and I had mentioned the Giants earlier, and I think about the Giants, and I'm thinking about how I think probably their fan base is saying, all right, if we're not getting Cam Ward, let's get Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, which I understand, right? But when you're talking about, what kind of difference maker Travis Hunter is, I think the benefit you get from him is really that he plays both ways. And if you put him at corner, he's going to be an elite corner. But, for the Giants, I don't know if that's what they're thinking about with him. I keep hearing that they want to play him at receiver if they get him. And I start to look at him and Malik Neighbors and say, they kind of win very similarly, which is a great problem to have. Obviously, you would love to have that problem, but Tyler Warren wins differently, right? And he adds a very different aspect to that offense, which I think is even maybe more valuable to that Giants offense. Again, because maybe their offensive line needs a little bit of help, and you would get an elite blocking tight end to add to that rotation. So I think it's interesting. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen or that I would even do that, but I think it's a conversation I would definitely have before, if I was the Giants GM making that decision.
Yeah, but they're not gonna take. I know you're trying to will Tyler Warren to New York. Either the New York teams, it's probably not going to be the Giants. It might still be the Jets, but it's not going to happen for the Giants. Although it would be a good pick, because Tyler Warren to any team is not a bad pick, because he's a high floor and high ceiling player. Any team that drafts him is going to be better, just flat out, period. So he will fit onto any team. I didn't want to be the one to bring up the elite tag, but I do think, overall, that he is in this class one that might have 4 or 5 tops. I think he's one of them. Being a tight end pushes him down a little bit, but might only push him down to 7, which is really not being pushed down at all. It's just the other quarterbacks being pushed up because of, again, the quarterback tax that we speak of all the time. So yeah, I think it's a strong tight end class overall, but Warren is the clear number 1 at the position. But it's a pretty good year to need tight end if you plan on taking one in the first 75 picks or so.
For sure. I just think, from my mind, I think about when, in years past drafts happen, right? And we're always surprised in the first 5 picks or so, because we're like, whoa, like, great player, but I just didn't expect him to go there, right? And it's like, to me, it's like I could totally see a team being like, I'm in love with Tyler Warren. That's the guy I'm getting, right? And all of a sudden we're at pick 3 or 4, and Tyler Warren's off the board, and we're going, wow, the Patriots just drafted Tyler Warren, right? Like, it could happen. Like, you're thinking, oh, they need offensive line help, they need receiver help. It's like you get a 2-1 right there, right? So just kind of interesting to play those scenarios in my head. But everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't yet, please give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter, or X at all22_PFF, and give us a review wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts. Have a great rest of your day.